Endgame has been out for a few weeks and basically most of the human population has already watched it, so it's safe to say that this video is going to be full of spoilers. So if you are the handful of people who haven't watched Endgame, I suggest watching it and coming back later. Okay, so Endgame basically destroyed me. I remember leaving Infinity War in complete shock. I've read the comics, so I knew how it ended, but I didn't think Marvel would take such a massive risk killing off almost all their heroes, especially Black Panther, knowing the success that it had. I was just in complete shock, and I thought it couldn't get worse than this. Well, I was wrong. The Russo brothers took our feelings and cranked the pain and loss to 1,000. They did everything I wanted them to do, and also did everything I didn't want them to do, but I knew it would happen anyways. Now, it's not a massive shock that Steve and Tony ended their runs in this movie. We all knew it was going to happen, but it's like seeing an old family member, knowing they won't live forever, but hoping they do. That's how I felt. I knew neither Steve or Tony were going to survive, but I love these characters so much, I didn't even want to accept that possibility. Now, I was leaning more on Tony being the one to kick the bucket, and the moment they showed that Tony had a daughter after the 5-year time skip, I already felt it coming. But man, give Robert Downey Jr. an Oscar for this movie, because this has to be one of his best performances to date. Now, don't get me wrong, everyone did an amazing job, but Robert absolutely killed it. He ended it with a bang, and that moment when he's fighting Thanos and uses the Infinity Stones to wipe them all away made my heart drop. Having his last words be, "I am Iron Man," completely destroyed me. I grew up with him. He was like that cool uncle I never had. I still remember watching the first Iron Man movie and being completely blown away by seeing one of my favorite heroes come to life. And then seeing his growth these past 11 years, how he went from selfish to selfless, was so pivotal for me growing up, and I didn't want to say goodbye. I don't think any of us did. And seeing him broken, destroyed, basically out of it, while Pepper held him and saying it was okay, he can rest now, was heartbreaking. And Peter. Okay, Peter Parker in that final scene, I swear I had so much tears in my eyes I couldn't even see what was going on. The emotions, everything felt so real. And for Peter Parker, think about it, it's probably been like 20 minutes for him. So imagine, he passes out, wakes up, 5 years has passed, but for him it's felt like 5 minutes. And then in this short amount of time, he loses his mentor, his father figure, his hero, in what seems to be just a short amount of time, only a few moments. That has to be a lot to handle. And I can't wait to see how they deal with that in Far From Home. But that's for another video. But then Tony has his funeral where everyone he met and impacted shows up, reminding me of that scene with Thanos in Infinity War where he tells Tony, "I hope they remember you." And they did. Even the kid from Iron Man 3 showed up. I couldn't hold back my tears. The Russo brothers just wanted to break me. Honestly, it was such a heartbreaking conclusion, but so necessary, seeing how his arc was going from Civil War until now. This was his fate, giving up everything to save the universe. It started and ended with Tony Stark, and I will always love him 3000. Now, let's talk about Steve for a little bit. His situation is a little bit different. This is exactly what I wanted for his story. I speculated months ago that the only way they would end his character was for him to finally live his life with Peggy, having that final dance. And seeing his face when he's old and talking to Sam, how at peace he was with everything, how he was finally able to live his life, really cemented how great of a character he is. Now, I rewatched Winter Soldier recently, and if you haven't watched it or it's just been a while, I suggest you do, because there's so many things about his character, his relationship with Sam, that really shows why Steve made the decisions he did that will ultimately lead up to him living his life with Peggy and passing the mantle on to Sam, or Falcon. While Tony was Iron Man first and Tony Stark second, Steve was only ever Cap. He was never able to live his life, settle down, be a free man. While Tony had those 5 years after Infinity War to really be his own person, to live his life, get away from all the superhero stuff, and just be able to settle down and be himself. I think it was the Russo brothers who, in an interview, they were talking about the decisions they made and why they chose to have that ending for Cap and have that ending for Iron Man. And they were talking about how they were on two different paths. That the arcs for both Tony and Steve were completely different, yet almost mirroring each other. While Tony's arc was a selfish man becoming selfless, ultimately giving his life at the end, Steve's arc was a selfless man who always gave his life for others, finally making the decision to be his own man. Because of circumstances and certain situations that's happened in his life, he was able to turn from Captain America into Steve Rogers, finally being able to let go of that responsibility of trying to save everyone and just making a decision for himself, not thinking about the world or the Avengers, but himself and what made him happy. And I thought that was just perfect because we see how these characters grow and develop over time and how Marvel really nailed it with these movies. And I know a lot of people are talking about how it's 22 movies and we're probably going to get superhero fatigue, but Marvel did something that a lot of companies don't do, and it's take their time. Nowadays, with the superhero craze and the franchises, everyone is trying to rush to make these team-up movies and build a universe. But Marvel didn't. They understood that characters come first. And unlike some companies, I'm looking at you, WB, and your horrible decision to kill off Superman without allowing us to really connect with him and grow with him. But that's a whole nother topic. Marvel knew how to take their time. They allowed us to grow. They allowed us to become attached to these characters, allowed us to get to know them, get to see their good sides, their bad sides, really allowing us to fall in love with these characters and then feeling that pain and feeling that moment of loss when they're gone. And I think that's just masterful storytelling with all the writers and all the executives in Marvel that came up with this idea. And we see how it pays off. Having the movie Endgame, with Steve and Peggy in that living room dancing with the music playing, was such a bittersweet moment. It truly made my heart break, but also made me feel so happy for this character. Because at the end of the first Captain America, we see when he wakes up and he's in the middle of Times Square talking to Nick Fury. Nick Fury asks him, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" And he says, "I had a dance." And that was his last line in his first movie. And having his last scene in his final movie, having that dance, completing that circle, that full arc of Steve trying to get back to his old life, trying to live that life that he always wanted with Peggy, was so beautiful. And I left Endgame feeling happy, excited for the future, ready to see this next phase of Marvel, but also having this emptiness in my heart, knowing that I will never see these characters again. Or will we? That's still unsure because, again, it's a comic book movie and anything really happens. And now that the multiverse is being introduced in Spider-Man Far From Home, we can really see these characters come back. But I really hope they don't do that, because I feel like it cheapens the impact and the emotional drama that Endgame had. And rewatching it in the years to come, it won't have that same impact or that same emotion behind it, knowing that these characters came back 3 or 4 or 5 movies later. As much as I love these characters, I hope they don't bring them back. I hope they stay dead and Steve stays where he is right now, because I feel like it's just so important for that character, so important. And it shows that these movies have stakes. They have, things can end. The thing with comic books is that no one ever really dies. So you're never really feeling that feeling of fear of like, oh my God, I can lose my favorite hero. But I hope the Marvel movies take that aspect where it's like, yes, you can lose those who you love. And it's not just the next movie, you're just gonna see them back again and be like, oh no, everything's okay. I hope they don't take that route. And I really hope it stays that way, because it's gonna make such an impact in the future. It's gonna make such an impact in the future Marvel movies. I hope they continue that moving forward. Especially in Far From Home, we see how Tony's death has impacted not only Peter, but the entire world. And I hope that stays that way. And I think by them not bringing these characters back really cements the emotional and impact that Marvel has with the audience, with these characters. And it's really going to make these movies so much greater moving forward. Now, to finish up, Endgame was an amazing movie. It was everything that I wanted and more, and it was a perfect conclusion for this Infinity Saga of the Marvel Universe. And I honestly cannot wait to see where they move forward now that they've gotten, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and all these new characters in their IP. I really hope they can continue this run of amazing, great movies. And of course, not every movie is perfect, but they're always so good with characters and emotions and feelings that you never walk out of a Marvel movie saying this was the worst time I've ever had. And I really hope moving forward we can see the growth of these new characters, of the new Avengers, of the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and really get to know these characters just as much as we did to Steve and Tony. Now, what do you think? Did you like Endgame? Did you not? Did you have a great time? Did you think it was the worst movie ever? Let me know in the comments below. Feel free to share your opinions, and it'll be amazing to know what each of you guys think. Do you feel the same way I do, or do you have different opinions? Let me know. Now, this is my first video, so please like, subscribe, and share because all the support will be greatly appreciated. And if you have any topics of videos, anything nerd, pop culture related, Marvel, Star Wars, anything really that you want me to talk about, feel free to comment and I will be happy to make videos on it. Now, I'm planning to do videos once a week, so stay tuned to the channel for future uploads. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and remember, it's awesome being a nerd.